Good evening. It is 5:30, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our October regular board meeting. I'm just going to go ahead and welcome everyone with a few opening remarks. I wanted to share a few thoughts and reminders. We want our boardroom to be a welcoming, safe space for all and any of our community members and guests. As this is a business meeting, we do expect those in attendance to conduct themselves in a respectful way. We would ask that you do not interrupt the meeting, and if there's an audio immediate need that you have, such as an audio concern or question, please move to the back of the room and let one of our staff members know. As a reminder, there is a designated space for any video recording and/or media in the back left of the room. We will now get started with our business meeting and items on our agenda. So first on our agenda is roll call. Director Barrows? Here. Director Decker? Here. Director Smith? Here. And Director Zavala is joining us via Zoom.
Here.
Thank you. And I'm also here. We're all present and counted for. Next on our agenda is the superintendent report. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Snell.
Thank you. And before we get into that, I'd invite everybody that's willing and able to stand for our national anthem. This is performed tonight by our Hudson's Bay Band. So we'll get going with that. Thank you. We have a tradition in our board meetings, if this is your first board meeting, that we always have the national anthem performed by a student group. And then at the conclusion of the meeting, they play another song. The national anthem, I'm sure, is a favorite one for them to play, but they also like to highlight some other musical performances. And so these are all also videoed. So if you wanted to go back and see some of the performances, they're archived in the board meeting recordings. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Right. This evening, as people were coming in, there's a strategic plan update. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And then we're always talking about our budget and where we're at in that process. So I'll give you an update on that as well. And then finally, for your consideration this evening, there is a legislative priority platform. So I want to give you some information on that as well. Our mission, inspiring learning, growing community, each student every day. And we have focused, the board has adopted some very specific goals within three main areas that support the vision of a graduate: the student-centered staff area, the student-centered experience, and the student-centered community. Tonight, as you came in, we were highlighting student-centered experience and some of the training that's happened recently, just around making sure that we understand our students' cultures. And so there's a one-pager back there if people are are interested, they can kind of look at the activities and some of the takeaways from that. And if you're ever interested in scanning that, you can. And then these are all archived on our website. Most of the time, the board spends reviewing the strategic plan is in our study session. And so would invite people who are interested in that to tune into one of those study sessions, which are remote. We try to give a snapshot, though, here in the regular meeting. Pause and see if there's any questions or comments from the board on that. Okay. So then in budget development, we've moved from a very intensive process last year in developing this budget, and now we're starting the 25-26 process. Just want to highlight a few things that are in play right now. Number one is we're just assessing where enrollment has come in and how that's maintaining over the first 5 weeks of the school year. We did the last board meeting, the board approved our new teacher's contract, our VEA certificated staff contract. And so working through with any new contract, it's the new costs that are associated with that and making sure that we understand how those fit into the budget development process. As everyone knows, people are experiencing inflation, so trying to manage and anticipate that. And then, of course, meet student needs as they come up over the course of the year. Another part of this is the state revenue forecast. They've released some initial, I think they do it quarterly, and so they had a quarterly update recently. We always are paying attention to that because as the state revenue trends upward, then typically we can expect maybe more support for schools, hopefully. And so that's kind of where we're at with some of those variables, and we'll continue to update you. I know Director Smith, Director Sproul represent the board on the budget committee. We have a meeting coming up next week to get into some of the details and then brief the rest of the board on that. One really important part of our budget development process this year is a levy renewal process. We have multiple levies in play. One is for more of the daily operations of the school district, which was approved a couple of years ago. This has been long considered the technology levy. It's also called a capital levy. It's not necessarily for staff. It's more for the infrastructure of the district. And we have one that's expiring. And so we will be going out to the voters again to see if they're willing to renew that levy. The board has basically the October and November months to consider what that resolution will be and what that replacement levy will look like. And so we want to make sure that the community is aware of that. February 11th is the election day. There's a pretty big election in November, so we'll probably wait until after that passes until we try to step into the election spotlight. I know that the board is always really mindful of the resources needed to run the district, but also the burden that that places on our taxpayers in the community. And so this slide, I know probably hard to see. Again, if you want to go to the slides in the archives, you can see this a little more. It has the different funding sources that are supported locally. That education and operations levy that I mentioned was passed a couple of years ago, the technology levy that's up for renewal, and then we have bonds that are in play as well. And you can see that over the course of time, these adjust and fluctuate based on where you're at with your payments, basically. And so when we look at the overall tax rate for 2024, we're in a pretty good position compared to where we were previously. And we have our bond rate dropping further and looking at what that technology rate should be to get the resources that we feel like we need, but also to maintain a steady tax rate overall for the community. When I look at my tax rate bill, I don't really itemize out each one. I just look at the bottom line. And so we want to make sure that that bottom line is consistent for our taxpayers. So I'll pause and see if there's any questions on that. Okay. I've went through this quite a bit about the budget reduction process. Basically last year we reduced our budget by about 9%. Inflation, our staffing costs, and some other factors. And I bring this slide up again today just to present why I'm bringing forward these legislative priorities that I know you've worked very hard on. So these aren't a surprise to you, but this staffing cost, we have seen the gap between what the state's funding this and what it actually costs to have high quality staff in front of our students is widening. And that widening gap creates problems for our sustainability. And so last year we had to eliminate a number of positions to try to manage that gap. We don't want to continue to do that. And so that's something that we're advocating for at the state level. The other piece related to inflation is just like any household or business right now, utilities and insurance expenses continue to escalate and have expanded beyond what our revenue is for that. And so that gap over the last 5 years is approaching $3 million. So that's something that we want to advocate for at the state level as well. And then the other area is special education. We've talked a lot about special education and the support our students deserve and are required to receive. And we've seen that gap expand as well over the last 5 years to a deficit of over $31 million. And so those are really problematic when we're building a budget. And so we're trying to make sure our elected officials understand those challenges as they go to the next session, which would start in January of 2025. We've been meeting with locally elected officials, both senators, representatives, and then also some key members from across the state that sit on either an education committee or a finance committee. One of the follow-up conversations from Representative Rude, who is out of the Walla Walla region, was how is our special education gap, like that's a big gap. Where's it coming from? And so Brett's done a lot of work and just looking at three main drivers of special education funding. One is the multiplier. So for each student that receives special education services, there's a multiplier that the state will apply to deploy the revenue associated with that student for their support. And so that gap's a little over $3 million. The safety net is a structure that the state has in play where students that require services that cost beyond that multiplier, districts can apply to be reimbursed for some of that. The challenge there is there's a gap between when you qualify for the safety net and the multiplier. So there's like a $30,000 gap in there. And so you might qualify for safety net, but you don't qualify for all the funds in between, which seems a little counterintuitive. And that's the largest portion of our gap. And then the final area is the state puts a cap on how many students can qualify for special education services. And so if you exceed that, say a student moves into your district, but you're already at they don't receive the services. Well, they don't receive the funding. They do receive the services because it's our obligation to provide the services. And so there's another gap that's created. So I was very impressed that Representative Arud knew to ask that question. That's always a really positive sign when people are understanding at a very nuanced level some of the challenges that districts across the state are facing. So that led us to, when we look at special education and those inflation escalators with insurance and utilities, we cut about 35 million from our budget, and not coincidentally, we have this gap that's very similar. So really working hard to advocate for help in those areas. This is a great resource that I often reference, and I just want to make sure people who are watching or on video or later or in person know that there's these resources just to better understand the situation. I think it's really important to be educated on it, and then whatever you think is thing forward, we just want to make sure you have the information available. And so this is the legislative priorities that we have put forward for you today. It's a nice one-pager. There's four main areas that we're looking at. The first is that special education for all the reasons I just articulated. The second is around, it's called MSOCs. It's basically our non-employee related costs, which are like the insurance and the utilities. And so to try to address that gap. The third area that we're asking for just research and investigation is this prototypical staff allocation model. The state made an update a couple of years ago around counseling and mental health, which was greatly appreciated. We feel like it could continue to be enhanced. There's a difference between the prototypical model and what communities across the state feel like is needed to run a school district. And so we ask for their attention there. And then transportation is an area as well that, in particular, students with special needs and maybe experiencing homelessness, just the transportation to make sure they have the access they deserve is really, really important. So those are the 4 areas that we're thinking about moving forward. And then within the prototypical model, I just wanted to call out what I've been asking legislators to look into more is safety. We have had a lot of safety concerns, and in our district, across the nation, there's been safety concerns. Unfortunately, anytime we see school shootings across communities, that spikes concerns that we have locally and threats, and we take all those seriously and investigate all those, and it really taxes our school administrators, our law enforcement, to try to make sure that we're staying up with all that. And when we look at the prototypical school model and the funding that the state provides for safety, like you think about a prototypical school, a high school, and that's a 600 size school. So most of our schools are bigger or smaller. No school is exactly the prototypical, but the state allocates 0.14 of a staff member to support safety with that, which you can't support safety with 0.14 of a staff member. So fortunately in our community, we have the support of our local levy, and we're able to have amazing staff members, including our DRO team that's here, that's funded locally to make that happen for us. So that's a place I like to call attention for the elected officials, because safety is always front and center of all of our minds when we're going to work, when we're sending our children to school, whatever it is, we want them to be safe. And I think we could increase the allocation there. So that's what I have this evening. I'll pause and see if there's any questions. And we do have that action item later about the legislative platform.
A couple things. First of all, regarding safety, I know you have been sharing with us some of the community input that you have been gathering around safety. So if anybody who's in our audience or who's listening, we have that information, I think, on the website. So there's a lot of kind of community input that we're trying to get regarding safety right now. So I appreciate you kind of talking about that focus. And I'd let you know too, I appreciate the communication that you've had recently around kind of needing help from our community, because there are a lot of, you mentioned, we have to investigate every safety concern, and a lot of times, like on social media, a lot of kind of rumors get spread or things kind of go out there. So it's really important to I think try to kind of verify what the information is, because when we get a lot of, ambiguous threats or things like that, it's hard to kind of tease out. I don't know if there's anything else you can kind of elaborate on kind of what we need our community's help and kind of tease, and hopefully some of that has maybe decreased since you've asked for help from our parents.
It's like, just as an example, if somebody were to email a principal and say, I'm not sending my student today because of a safety concern, I heard there's a threat. What our administrators would do is then try to contact that parent and say, is there a specific threat that we need to be aware of? And if so, then we want to investigate that fully. What we're finding is a lot of times it's, well, I heard this or I saw that, and then we're trying to chase that, like kind of almost like telephone game, I think was the old way of describing that, right? Like, and so to do your due diligence on all those things and engage law enforcement, it just takes a lot of time. And so we want all concerns to be shared. We want people to feel comfortable sharing concerns, and the more specific information they have, the easier it is for us to verify and get information out really quickly. I know a lot of times people get frustrated too with like wanting to have more information shared. And a lot of times there isn't any more information to share because it's not verified as a threat, or there might be some privacy issues involved with individual students and what we can or cannot share with them. And I appreciate that gets really frustrating for people who have concerns and just want the best for their children. And more information can be helpful in those situations. And unfortunately, we don't have the opportunity. The other thing is I would just say is like easy for me to say now, we're not in an emergency situation right now, but your patience is really appreciated because when you think about, I mean, I kept looking at Spencer, who's here to be recognized tonight. He's a team of 2 at a middle school. And so if they're investigating something, they can't respond to every phone call in the moment. They want to get the most accurate information and get that out to our public as soon as possible. So I know easier said than done, but they're working really hard for you at all the schools to make sure that your kids are safe. So looks like Director Zavala has her hand raised.
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you, Dr. Snell, and to Brett, and also to Melissa, who were part, I was able to take part to most of these meetings with our representatives and legislators and senators. And so you did such a great job at representing our district and asking for their support. And so I just wanted to give a big shout out and just appreciate how much you're doing for, because it was time out of your day and time out of Brett's day in order for you to advocate for our students in our district.
Yeah, I was just going to add how important this part of the legislative process is. Every agency in the state is asking the legislature for more money right now. And so it's about being able to present compelling data, tell the story of what's actually happening. And I think, you know, that the slide you shared, Dr. Snell, of the prototypical school model, every time I see that, I'm struck. That means Skyview would have a half-time DRO, and most of our other schools would have maybe 1 day a week, which we just know isn't sufficient. And in our community, we expect more, and we're able to support that. But the back and forth with our state legislature is critical. And in the next 2 months, they're all campaigning. So there's opportunities to, or next month, go to their meet and greets and their campaign events and continue to tell them that our community cares about education. And I one other thing I just want to highlight, I think, you know, all of us as directors have, we collaborate with directors across the state. Nothing that's happening in Vancouver is unique to Vancouver. This is a statewide issue. And I think a lot of the legislative priorities with WASA, WASDA, they're all staying on special ed and MSOCs and transportation. We're all feeling the same pain. So hopefully we can get some movement this spring. Anyone else?
I was also going to add, I really appreciate the focus on special ed and the funding there, because it seems like in the greater scheme of our, school community, special ed is, this piece of it, but it's such a huge impact on the budget. Because you're exactly right. There's a cap on the funding, but we are obligated to serve all of our students. And so that money comes from the rest, making up the special ed budget comes from other parts of our budget. And, we've experienced within our community this year, the impact of budget shortfalls. And it's not a problem that's just going to go. I mean, our students, I feel like every year, we continue to have student needs and students who struggle. And we are obligated to provide those services no matter the cost. And so, I'm glad to see it was the very first thing on our legislative priorities. So thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is our employee recognitions.
So we have a number of employee recognitions tonight, and it's always great to see the support that's here for the families and friends and all the people behind these recognitions. These people are always very humble, so it's also fun to see them kind of get pushed into the spotlight a little bit, a little out of that comfort zone. So I'm going to read about their nomination, and then I'm going to invite them forward and to be recognized with a plaque. And we have these, I'm always curious to see who actually wears the lanyard. Like, it's awesome, right? Like, and And so there's a lanyard that says Employee Excellence Award winner. And so we couldn't be more pleased to recognize you with these this evening. So our first award winner is Jennifer Beeks. Could you come forward, Jennifer? Jennifer is the FCRC coordinator at Minnehaha Elementary, a beacon of compassion and support for our students and their families. With unwavering dedication, Jennifer works tirelessly to ensure each student's basic needs are met. From providing food and clothing to connecting families with essential resources, Jennifer's commitment is exceptional. As our nominator shares, Mrs. Beeks has helped us in so many ways. She has been amazing. Her warmth, empathy, and determination create a safe and supportive environment where families feel valued and empowered. Minnehaha is fortunate to have such a remarkable FCRC coordinator who makes a lasting difference in the lives of our students and families. Thank you, Jennifer. I'm sorry, I forgot to click the slide. So there's Jennifer up there. Sure, she is here. I'm pretty good at multitasking, but not here, I guess. Our next award winner is Nick Hernandez. Nick, could you come forward? Nick is the job facilitator at GATE. And is an integral part of the GATE program's mission to support students in meeting their post-grad employment goals. With his exceptional interpersonal skills and knowledge of employment options, Nick expertly connects students with opportunities that align with their skills, interests, and career goals. On top of maintaining and growing worksite options, coordinating transportation, and conducting mock interviews, Nick also produces high-quality video resumes for each GATE graduate to capture each student's unique journey. As one just create employment pathways, he nurtures students' meaningful engagement in their futures. Thank you, Nick. I also want to add that those videos that Nick helps create, if you ever have the pleasure of going to a GATE graduation, they're often featured as the great GATE graduates come across the stage, and it's just awesome. And when we talk about special education funding, Nick is such a bridge to the community because unfortunately our community doesn't have a lot of options for our kids once they transition out of our system. And so this role that Nick plays is like handing off some of our most important and fragile students to our community as a whole and making sure that there's people that love and care for them. So Nick, thank you so much. Our next award winner is Melissa Curta. Is Melissa here? Could she come forward? Melissa is a para-educator right here at Roseville Elementary, and she's shown unwavering dedication to her students that goes far beyond the ordinary. Her empathy and dedication are truly inspiring, and her selfless acts of kindness, like bringing in cookies during a difficult transition, demonstrate her unwavering commitment to our students' well-being. As one former student shared, I'm really sad I had to go to middle school and leave Roosevelt because she felt like my second mom. I want her to notice how good of a job she's doing. Thank you, Melissa. Our next award winner is Summer Peterson. Summer, could you come forward? Summer is a behavior systems specialist at Marshall Elementary. She is a ray of sunshine in the classroom. With her infectious personality and positive attitude, Summer has a unique ability to connect with students and staff alike. Summer was nominated by several former students, all of whom praised her kindness, patience, and individual approach to teaching. A fellow teacher shares she has the perfect balance of holding students accountable, makes sure they know they are worthy and loved, and finds a way to relate to them with her whip-smart humor. And I just want to call out again, she's a behavior specialist and all of her students are nominating her to be recognized, right? Like that tells about the relationship. Thank you, Summer. All right, we have one more award winner. Spencer, could you come forward? Transitioning to a new school can be a daunting experience for students, but starting this new chapter is made easier with support from dedicated staff like Spencer Williams. As an associate principal at Hudson's Bay High School, Spencer went above and beyond to make ninth graders feel at home by fostering a sense of belonging through personal connections. His small but meaningful gestures like fist bumps and personalized greetings create a welcoming and supportive environment where students feel valued and encouraged. Spencer is an unwavering advocate for students and staff alike and is an invaluable asset to any school community. And he helped coordinate like the annual rock, paper, scissors championship, which pretty incredible, right? To have the spotlight, the wrestling spotlight in the center of the gym and two kids come out to do rock, paper, scissors with the whole school just cheering them on. So it's that kind of stuff that makes Spencer pretty special. So congratulations, Spencer. Congratulations, everyone. I know some of you are here for just this portion of the agenda, and as Director Sproul walks back to get ready for our next part of the agenda, it's okay if you leave at this point. Nobody will be offended, and we will get started with our next part here shortly. So.
The next portion of our agenda is public comments. I'm going to go ahead and let everyone file out, and then I'll read the expectations. So public comment is the time in our meeting where the board and administrative staff welcome comments from the public. If you would like to address the board and did not have an opportunity to sign in at the start of the meeting, please do so now at the table in the back of the room. You may continue to sign in at any time during the public comments portion of our meeting. We ask that you approach the podium and state your name and affiliation with the district for the record. You will have 3 minutes to make your comments. When you hear a chime, please conclude your remarks. It is very hard to interrupt people, so please honor the chime. If you have materials or additional comments you would like the board to review, please hand them to the staff in the back of the boardroom, and this information will be shared with the superintendent and the board. Because most matters require fact-finding and review, and the state's Open Public Meetings Act restricts deliberation on topics that have not been placed on the publicly noticed agenda, the board is not able to respond to any public comments made at this time. If follow-up action is necessary, we will ask the superintendent to work with the administrative staff to consider the information and respond accordingly. As a regular business meeting of the board, we expect audience to conduct themselves professionally and courteously. Speakers are also expected to be respectful. We ask the audience to refrain from clapping, cheering, or commenting while others give public comments, whether you are in support or against. We recognize that there are diverse beliefs and feelings across our stakeholders in our district, but one thing that we have in common is that we all want to do what is best for our children. We are here today to work towards their future. The board does ask that personnel complaints be submitted in writing. Disruptive conduct may cause the meeting to be adjourned and all audience members to be removed per RCW 4230.050. The board appreciates, listens, and cares about the broad range of perspectives in our community. Thank you in advance for your comments. So I'm going to go ahead and start. We had 3 people sign up in advance. The first is Steve Freibel.
Steve Freebel, you need my address, 2418 Northwest 147th Street, 98685. Thank you for my first time ever opportunity to speak to a school board. I promise not to be cranky, crotchety, or cantankerous, so breathe easy. I've been an educator for a really long time. For over 20 years, I was the principal of this district's alternative high school and then a teacher at the juvenile jail for 2 years. I love that job. My mission and purpose has always been to focus on those students who were and are disadvantaged, dysfunctional, disconnected, and delinquent. For the last 12 years, I've worked as a substitute principal at schools only in this district and with my favorite students. This year, I've seen an unusual, unnerving, and very obvious increase in teacher and administrator frustration and stress. Good people are expected to do much more than ever before with even much less than ever before. I'm nervous and anxious about regarding the operation of our schools for the next few years. Teachers, counselors, paras, security officers, secretaries, clerks, custodians, kitchen staff, associate principals, all are performing their primary job, which is to keep kids safe, while at the same time addressing the needs of an increasing population of students with social, emotional, and mental health needs. The needs of this population of students are clearly not being met for a wide variety of reasons. Some are due to systemic paralysis, and others just don't get the services even though they might be available to them. Situation can be so severe that teachers are unable to fully do their job, and administrators are no longer educational leaders, but rather spend much of their time working with the same kids who all day and every day are misbehaving, dangerous, and seriously interrupting the education of other students. Should this situation continue, substitute principals like myself will likely be more unavailable to work in certain schools, and I expect that even more teachers and principals may use up their sick days and may just not start showing up. Based on what I've observed, it occurs to me that some schools may not be psychologically safe. Few obvious indicators of this condition include an increase in days of poor physical and mental health because educators are expected to support students who are coping with adverse psychological and traumatic stress. Educators begin to experience secondary post-traumatic stress symptoms such as anxiety, nightmares, and withdrawal from hearing about students' trauma. Feelings of being overwhelmed and underprepared to address students and the students' families' mental health needs can lead to experiences that contribute to emotional exhaustion and burnout. Psychological safety is ignored. The physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual cost to individual educators and to the entire system could be overwhelming. And what are the effects of all of this on our students on a daily basis? There are solutions. Some are very simple and can be easily implemented by the caring and loving leaders of the district. And no, I'm not a sales rep, nor am I connected with any of these solutions. I'm just a school guy with some experience and who is very concerned about the well-being of all of the outstanding and amazing educators who work with our children. I could provide more, but my time is up. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Gavin Handley. Is Gavin Handley here? Is there a Gavin Hanley on Zoom possibly? Okay, I'll circle back at the end. Amy Stepper. Is there an Amy Stepper on Zoom? Okay, thank you. For those that signed up tonight, the first up is Josh Wong.
My name is Josh Wong and I'm a parent and I was a coach 2 years ago as part of the Skyview baseball program. I was also nominated for Coach of the Year. The last 2 years, I witnessed head coach intimidating, harassing, bullying kids, as well as publicly embarrassing kids at all levels, starting from a freshman's first day of practice to a senior's last week of practice. I know of nearly a dozen parents complained to the administration regarding his behavior, with nothing ever being done. All the principal and AD has said is, quote, "We're investigating your allegations and will monitor the situation and review the head coach better ways to communicate. Also, that we will monitor practices and games more than they currently have been. A coach cannot provide a positive environment, should not be coaching kids. Saying we'll work with him on how to communicate with kids is not a solution for a long-term coach. Also, designating someone to watch a coach at practices and games due to these repeated actions is unacceptable. These are the most influential moments in these kids' lives as they continue and become men. The actions he's displayed and the environment he has developed has made over 15 kids quit the sport they love. Some of the kids don't play for Skyview and only play for summer teams where they get treated with respect and enjoy a positive team building environment. I've had several coaches in my lifetime. The ones I respect the most provide players with respect, fairness, accountability, but even more gives kids proper inspiration, instruction, and build a strong foundation that will not only help them in baseball, but mold them for the rest of their lives. The environments the kids are in now is opposite of that, and has had kids enrolling to other schools, transferring, or trying to transfer to leave Skyview, or just quitting the baseball program altogether. Last year, 4 kids that played football for this coach decided not to play baseball because of their experience with him. As well as this year, I know several other freshman kids that are not going to continue to play baseball based on their football experience. Our call to action is for the current Skyview baseball head coach to be relieved of his baseball coaching duties no later than October 25th. We will follow this up with more evidence from various sources, which displays a pattern of behavior totally unbecoming of the VPS employee, much less that of a head coach, which stands in stark contrast to anything remotely resembling social emotional learning, much less the required outline in the VPS job description under which he was hired. We thank you for your time and attention and look forward to your rational and heartfelt approach to quickly fixing the damaging effects on our young student athletes by Skyview Baseball.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do want to remind the audience, we welcome to hear all of your experiences. Personal complaints should be in writing. Please feel free to speak to your experiences at school. Next up, we have Ethan French.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ethan French. I'm a senior at Skyview High School. I played Skyview baseball my sophomore year. Growing up, I was always a good ball player. I played for Hazeldale Little League, and then I moved up to Salmon Creek. When I got to Skyview, I met the head coach. I was excited to play, but when the year developed, I started to realize I didn't like the coach at all. I was called out in class for something that wasn't my fault, which then caused the coach to make all the players run at the end of practice. I'd be lying if I said that wasn't the most embarrassing moment of my career. His coaching style was more of a boot camp than a baseball training. If you failed to play, he would belittle you. If you didn't block a ball, he'd bench you. Don't even think about bringing it up to him because he'd make you run polls until you throw up. All of the other Skyview coaches were great, but the head coach was the one I always tried to avoid because maybe I didn't feel like being criticized for every small mistake I made. I got more bullpen time than actual playing time. He never got to see how good I really am because he never put me in the game. The head coach ruined my love for the sport, so I quit. I quit Skyview baseball. My chief complaint was he is hostile and is not a good coach. He aims to intimidate rather than to help. When I emailed him about me quitting, he posted a screenshot of it to the baseball group chat for everyone to see. Not only that, but he also added, Ethan French seems to want to quit. He claims I was hostile. Anyone else notice this? Of course, nobody replied. Why? Because they're all scared of him. If you aren't the starting pitcher or some magical gold glove all-star, then you don't have a chance of playing. All in all, the head coach ruined my love for baseball and was by far the worst coach I've ever had in my 15 years of playing baseball. Thank you.
Thank,
Hello, I'm Jace Wong and I play Skyview baseball. Um, yeah, so my friend wrote this up. He was a student at Skyview. He didn't play for the head coach in the last 2 years at Skyview. And one of those reasons was because I had a late tryout my junior year during spring break due to some personal reasons. Coach Wong set everything up for me, actively trying to get me on the team. And the head coach said he was okay with it and encouraged Coach Wong to get me out there. The day I was supposed to do my tryout, he said I wasn't clear, but I had turned in my physical form the Friday before, and this event took place the following Tuesday. I said that I understood and sat out for the day, but the issue I had with it was he claimed he wanted me to try out but never checked my physical clearance, which never went through until the following month. I was checking on it almost daily, but everything I did to try to get cleared failed. But that was just one thing. When I was there, I witnessed the head coach being very biased towards people he's known for a long time. I also saw him yelling at kids if they messed up, but he never tried to help them to fix what they did. I know a lot of people who played for him and completely disliked him for many reasons, including the ones I stated. He say he is all for you and that he wants you to succeed, but when the time came, he didn't show up. Thank you.
next we have Lori Drapella. Did I say that right?
Thank you. I am Lori Drapella, and I am here tonight with the Clark County Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board. And the Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board advises and makes recommendations to the Clark County Council related to developmental disabilities issues and services. The board provides community leadership on improvement of efficiency and effectiveness of community developmental disabilities programs. Each year, the advisory board hosts the Disability Employment Awareness Awards. This year, the event will be on October 9th from 4:30 to 6 p.m. Many of the nominees and award winners are former students. Our former students of Vancouver Public Schools. The awards honors the role people with developmental disabilities have in assisting us to achieve a dynamic, productive workforce and recognize the leadership of the business community. The event also celebrates October as National Disability Employment Awareness Month. The live in-person event will be held at Clark College in Geyser Hall, 1933 Fort Vancouver Way. The event will be live streamed, recorded, and aired on CV TV for those who prefer to watch from home. This is a free public event, though we are asking for registration so that we know how many people to expect in person. For registration information, please email dd.program@clark.wa.gov or call 564-397-2130. Thank you.
Thank you. John Gerard.
Hi, John Gerard. I wanted to give you an update on our workforce development efforts. Last Friday was Dozer Days. The weekend was for the kids. 2 years ago, we made an arrangement to allow high school students come to Dozer Days, of those who know what that is. We had about 50 employers there. 900 kids came from all the high schools, over 350 from Vancouver School District. And you hear about safety and behavior. It's a hard thing to get that many kids there, but I will tell you, the behavior is as good as I've ever seen anywhere. Not one sign of a problem. So it kind of got me thinking, why is that? Well, I think it's because they're engaged. They want to be there. A couple of other things, updates on our building progress at Hudson's Bay. The slab is poured. The building will get erected starting here in a few days. Should be ready to go early spring of next year. The Fort building, we're ahead of schedule. Should be starting that probably in January and be done before the school year. And what's exciting about Fort, well, first with Bay, you know, me being the home building industry, I've got all the employers behind that, but the welding program's a little different. And one of my goals was 5 years ago is working with Vigor. I don't know if you guys all know who that is, but they came into town and took over Christensen Shipyards, which before that, you go way back, that was really the shipbuilding efforts in Vancouver. We have a rich history. And Vigor has stepped up working with Mark Reith right now. And I think we're going to have a nice pipeline for him out of Fort. And that's pretty exciting. Let me see here. The toolbox, as you see right here, is kind of a neat story. There is a prominent donor in town that's been a little quiet with Vancouver School District. I reached out, and guess what? They're going to fund all the toolboxes for Vancouver this coming year, which we hope to be around 500 with the fourth graders. And then I've been making my rounds with the other schools that I'm working with. My nonprofit's called Careers in Construction. My home building company's Quail Homes, for those who don't know. And so I'm working with all the schools, and now that we're in kind of the third year, I'm seeing the things take traction. And when I looked at Dozer Days with your instructors who were there, the hip in their step, the student behavior, things are happening, and we have a bright future here for our skilled trades. And I would say one thing to emphasize, like in your strategic plan, is attendance. That's what employers are looking for. Attendance. Attitude, just like they're talking about here with the ball club, attitude. And the last is really this combined math with construction is hitting its stride. And these kids will rise right above the others applying for jobs because they've actually are coming into the job ready, I guess, industry with some of these skills. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for the update. Craig Costanza.
Hello, and thank you, members of the board, Dr. Snell, and members of the public. My name is Craig Costanza, and I'm a Skyview parent. And we're here tonight, as you heard previously, because there's serious psychological and emotional harm being inflicted on Skyview baseball players since the current head coach took over in October 2022. Our children's dignity and self-confidence, not to mention their baseball dreams, are being crushed. They've been subject to continual bullying, harassment, verbal abuse, intimidation, and degrading and demeaning behavior, resulting in a total loss of self-esteem and outright emotional stress and pain for the last 2 years. But don't take it from me. Kids like AJ Williams, Roberto Ortega, Jose Ortega, Ethan French is here tonight, Roman Falzone, Jace Wong, Zach Lopez, and many, many others were so negatively affected by the head coach that they felt they had no other choice than to step forward to try to make a change. Unfortunately, many have quit the Skyview baseball program altogether. Jose Ortega, who couldn't be here tonight because he's at work, he decided he'd had enough and will not play his senior year and said, and I quote, "I'm not playing for many reasons, honestly. The program under the head coach messed up my confidence, which ended up messing me up mentally at times," end quote. It would be a mistake to think that we are just a couple of disgruntled parents seeking personal vendettas because our kids didn't get enough playing time. That's not what this is about at all. This is about mentoring, supporting, and providing positive role models and instilling in these athletes desirable character values. The current Skyview baseball program makes the district's own stated 5 character values of integrity, growth, resilience, dignity, and community as published on school and district websites, the district's Character Strong program. And also you can see it hanging in the Skyview Commons, and as well as the district's own job description for the coaching position. All of this completely rings hollow and is rendered meaningless for these kids. The district's new hate and bias protocol sent in the September 20th email says in part, under prevention strategies, quote, disrupting bullying and harassment, each student should be able to attend school feeling safe, supported, and with dignity, end quote. This is the complete opposite of what is going on now at Skyview Baseball. One glaring instance of how intimidation is being used to create a climate of anxiety and fear, and therefore makes it so difficult for parents and athletes to step forward for fear of retribution, is the following. On May 13th, 2024, the head coach forced the entire team to fill out player surveys before they could go home from practice, telling them that it was anonymous, but he required that they write down their emails on the surveys and then later called them out on anything he did not like in their responses. We have many more documented incidences, which time prevents us from reviewing here, and all of this will be submitted to you in writing. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan Formel.
Hello, I'm Megan Formel. I am a dual language teacher in a first grade, second grade split at Sarah J. Anderson. And I'm back again to talk to you about our class sizes. We had our first FTE and the district looked at the numbers and came back and said we could collapse a fourth grade classroom to get another kindergarten classroom because all of our kindergartens are in overload. The other choice was overload pay. That was it. So we have about half of our classes now in overload. Our second grade cohort has never had, on the English only side, has never had a class size under 24, ever. And we are seeing some behaviors in those classes. So I wanted to give you that update. I didn't bring the rosters with you because as school board members, you can see them, and I know Dr. Snell can see them. You can look at the numbers for yourself, but I'm hoping that you're asking when you were presented with, you know what, we can't do more sections, we can do overload pay. Is that really the practical solution to have so many classes with more than 24 students in them at a school Anderson size, over 600 kids, and so many of them with more than 24 kids in a classroom from all the grade levels? I hope we can do better. I don't think it's the practical solution. I think we're going to see consequences of this, not just in testing, but also in behaviors as the years go on if we can't get our class sizes down. So I'm asking you again to please work on that. And hopefully next month I can come back and say, yes, we got a new section. Amazing. So I'll see you in November. Thanks.
Thank you. That concludes the audience participation portion of the evening. I just want to thank everyone who spoke. The next, we're going to move into our regular business agenda. You are free to leave if you'd like to. Yeah, just please leave quietly. Just as a reminder for our regular business meeting, we review all of our contracts and policies up for action at our regular board meeting in the committee of the whole prior. So we reviewed this, I think, September 17th. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the approval of minutes. Do I have a motion? It is for September 10th, September 17th, and September 24th.
I'll make the motion.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Oh, assuming not, we'll take it to a vote. Director Smith? Approve. Director Decker? Approve. Director Barrows?
Approve.
Director Zavala?
Approve.
And I also approve. The next is our consent agenda for instructional and administrative support and as well as fiscal support services. Do I have a motion? So moved. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, are there any comments or questions about these items? Okay, we'll take it to a vote. Director Barrows,
Approve.
Director Decker,
Approve.
Director Smith,
Approve.
and Director Zavala.
Approve.
And I also approve. So for our regular business, the first item is recommendation to, these are first readings. I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Snell.
Thank you, Director Sproul. These are first readings of policy. You were given a preview of these in the committee of the whole meeting. In the agenda, there are documented changes or new highlighted, so you can see what the differences are, or if it's a new policy. I will be bringing these back in November, so if there are any questions or concerns, we ask that you let us know beforehand. Otherwise, they'll be showing up as they're written and proposed for your consideration of approval.
Are
The-
there, oh, go ahead.
Oh.
Are there any questions at this time for any of these first readings? Okay, Director Zavala?
I don't think there's any action.
Right.
Director, did she have a question?
Nope.
Okay, so the number 6 one on the list is different, though. That is the
second reading.
public policy agenda. And so that is
Right.
one that we're asking for potential approval of, and this is the one that I presented
Right.
earlier in the superintendent report.
This was that our audience can find our legislative priorities, yes. Do I have a motion for our 24-25 public policy agenda?
I will make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
There's lots of enthusiasm for it. Okay, great. Are there any comments or additional questions?
I think we talked about this earlier when Dr. Snell presented on the legislative priorities, but I think these are all obviously priorities. These are all very important. And I know these are things that we as school directors and Dr. Snell, as superintendent, are going to be advocating for, but obviously our community members who want to get involved, our community members who are feeling the impact of budget cuts. These are things that you guys can help us in advocating for.
And I just want to reiterate something that Director Sproul said earlier. It is an election season, and every one of our legislative positions are running for office, either for reelection or for new positions. Ask these questions of these candidates as to how they will support our schools. We would love to be able to have smaller class sizes, but without funding, it makes it very difficult to do so.
Anything else? Director Zavala, do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, I guess the only thing I would like to add is that I also submitted our legislative priorities based on these for WASDA. And so I would also agree that the conversation at the legislative committee is very, I think all board directors are very much on the same points of special education and MSOCs and trying to be fully funded. So I think our representatives are hearing us from all directions.
And just to add, Director Zavala, you serve a special position in WASDA. Do you want to share what that is?
Yeah, so part of WASDA, there's the legislative committee, and each districted area, we're in districted area 2, and I am one of 2 representatives for our area. And so part of that committee, we in a sense represent this area. So basically it's the Clark, Cowlitz, and I believe part of some of the Skamania County, and we get to vote on a lot of the positions that we will then be advocating for at the legislation. So we have quarterly meetings, and our next coming meeting is this coming week on Friday and Saturday. So we'll be getting ramped up for legislative session.
Thank you. I wasn't trying to put you on the spot. No, I'll take this to a vote in a moment. I just want to highlight, I think it's so important that we as a district articulate our priorities that we need to advocate for to support our mission and values and really the goals that we've outlined most recently in our strategic plan. But it is really nice to also then branch out and with our partners across Southwest Washington, find alignment and collaboration because our voice is louder and stronger when we are working together with our colleagues across the state. So hopefully we will be heard next spring. I will take this to a vote. Director Smith.
Approve?
Director Decker.
Approve.
Director Barrows.
Approve.
Director Zavala.
Approve.
And I also approve. That concludes our regular business agenda. The last item is Board of Directors reports. I'm not sure if any directors have any items to report on.
I just wanted to share that, I guess it's on the same topic of legislative committee. I got to attend the General Assembly. For record, we finished in a day, which was pretty amazing. But I think just the sentiments that we are all in support of trying to fully fund special education and get MSOCs funded as well. And I also want to give just a big shout out to our student advisory committee. They've been doing a really great job of being representatives of our community. At General Assembly, it was kind of hard to hear that some of our school boards don't completely agree in having students at the table. So I just also want to just give a big shout out to our board because we really do take into consideration our students' voice. And it's important to bring them to the table. So that was just, I've been doing a lot of legislative work, and I'll bring another report back from our legislative committee meeting this coming week.
Thank you for that. Okay, there is no executive session tonight. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Don't forget we have the Bay music.